My name is Matt Olson. I'm a lieutenant here with the Bolingbrook Fire Department. I've been here 21 years. I've been in the fire service since September of 1989. Generally, my career in the fire service was uneventful, at least as it related to me personally. The things that we were asked to see and do were completely manageable, and I didn't have a whole lot of issues. In 2012, the year began with me finding my mother had passed away at home. My wife and my sons and myself went to go visit, and we found that she had died. And what seems to happen to most firemen is what happened to me. My sisters were both there, and they had the ability to grieve and be upset and ask me, hey Matt, will you take care of this? So my job became kind of what I expected it to be. I was asked to plan a funeral, I was asked to move a lot of furniture, I was asked to sell a home, and I was not given time for myself to really think about the things that had happened. That same year, a couple months later, my grandfather, who was really my inspiration to get into the fire service at all. He was a captain with the city of Chicago, and we were really close when I was younger. For a lot of reasons, my grandparents really took care of me. And my grandfather passed away. That was more troubling for me than I expected it to be. That was one of those things where, again, the family came to me and said, hey, fireman, you can fix things, that's your job, would you fix this? And rather than take the opportunity to think about what I'd lost, we had to do the same thing. We had to plan a funeral, we had to make sure there was a bagpiper there, we had to make sure the city of Chicago came because that's what his family would have wanted. And I did all those things, and I didn't take any time for myself. And honestly, I didn't know that I needed to. I had done what I always did, and it always worked. So we were good, I thought. We had a real difficult event here at work where we lost a child who had drowned. And it became kind of a rallying cry where we really wanted to change the way that we do things. And I ran up against some obstacles, a lot of support. I found it was really difficult to get the changes that we wanted made. And that became really personally frustrating for me. But again, you do what you always do, and you put those things aside and you move on. That summer, my wife's best friend passed away. We got a call from her daughter saying, I need you to know that Karen's gone. And I'm starting to think this is kind of a ridiculous year. I've never really had anything like this happen to me. What that experience did for me is it was the first time my private life and my professional life really intersected. And I spent a lot of time thinking less about, for example, the child who drowned, and thinking a lot more about her family and who's left behind. And I all of a sudden realized the serious nature of the things that we do. And when we leave an incident, it's not over. It may be over for us, but the reality is those terrible things happened. And I spent a lot of time really connecting with how serious in nature our jobs are. And everything became really problematic for me. It became difficult for me first to do the job. It became difficult for me to be able to walk away from and forget, if you will, the things that I'd experienced. I yet had to learn that forgetting isn't really the goal, processing is the goal. It's not something that I'd ever done, and again, not something I thought I needed to do. That was kind of the trigger point for me where, while I didn't know what my problem was, I really suffered through a depression, which I didn't even want to hear about, and I wouldn't recognize that that was a thing that I could be suffering from. My mother suffered from depression. My mother tried to kill herself a number of times, and that was something I was completely averse to. I wasn't open-minded to that being a part of me. Out of ideas, I was kind of in a place where I had given up on life, and I knew that I have two sons, I have a wife, I have reasons to be here, and before I do anything permanent, I want to make sure that I cross off every T and dot every I. So I took myself in to see a professional counselor. And what that experience did for me is really life-changing, because I went there with the expectation of getting through something that I needed to do before I could make my own decisions. I never had the idea that I would be able to feel joy again. If anything, my goal was to walk away from this dark depression that I was denying even existed. And all we did is talk. We didn't do anything heroic. We just talked. And I learned the power of a conversation. It became really inspirational to me to understand that people really can be a conversation away from a serious change in their life and a serious step in the right direction. And after about 6 months, no longer was I depressed. I was literally able to connect again with the things in my life that made me happy. And I found just by talking about the things in that year that had upset me and recognizing the things in my job that are that real and discussing them, talking about them, putting them in their proper place, that I was able to again successfully do this job, and more importantly, successfully be able to exist. After the events in 2012, and when I finally made my own mind up to go get professional help, that was something that I kept to myself. I knew internally that that's something I needed to do, wasn't ready to share that with anybody. And I realize now that that's problematic. It's really not the right way to approach these things. You know, I'm fortunately in a position where I have some credibility. You know, here people seem to listen to me, and I want to make sure that if that's the case, that I do the right things. And I'm an officer on the job here. I'm a vice president with my state, union, and I was a union president here for a long time within my local department. And if I have the ability to make sure somebody else doesn't get to the place that I got, I want to do that. There are others that just need the guys that understand them to be there for them. And these members of the fire department that share all these experiences to understand that first, they're very real, and second, they're very normal. And if you collect a lot of bad experiences and they impact you personally, rather than wondering, why are we all getting divorced? Why are we all drinking the way we're drinking? Why are we losing relationships with our kids? And why are we taking our own lives? Let's ask those questions before it's too late. Let's talk to each other. And when you get into the fire department as a probationary employee, they're going to tell you to wear your gear, be fully encapsulated, because fire is going to burn you. They're going to tell you to sound the floor before you walk across it, because you don't want to fall through. They're going to tell you to put on that SCBA, because smoke's an asphyxiant and it's a carcinogen and it'll kill you. They don't tell us about these things that really can and will impact us in a really harmful way. Again this year, more firemen are going to take their own lives and are going to be killed on the job. And that's a problem we need to address. So Illinois Firefighter Peer Support happened. We train our firefighters to listen, to validate, to understand, that's it. We're not teaching them to be little therapists. We're simply teaching them that it's okay to tell that guy next to you, you know what, I struggle a little too. Or even if I didn't, totally okay with you doing it. And our job is to make it safe for each other. So we provide an opportunity for the firefighters in Illinois and hopefully elsewhere to be able to recognize the dangers of all of those life events and how serious this job can be. And when they finally are in a place where it's hard, that they can say so. Because I don't care how strong you are, eventually if I give you enough, there's a 5-pound bag you can't lift. That's the truth. Now that number may be different for everybody. Sooner or later you'll find that 5-pound bag. And rather than power through it and be that fireman you thought you were told to be and lift every burden and solve every problem, the strong person is the one that can step up and say, you know what, I don't have this one. I need your help. And we want to create a place for those firefighters to come. And that's really what we want Illinois Firefighter Peer Support to be. I'm the program director for Illinois Firefighter Peer Support. That's essentially my role. And I'm fortunate that we have just over 100 firefighters that have come through our program to be trained as peer supporters, a number of which operate as coordinators, where we divide our groups sort of like you would divide a MABUS division into smaller groups so that we can connect with everybody in a reasonable way where we're not trying to send 100 different messages. We send out a message through our lead coordinator, who's Josh Jessup, and then as the algorithm builds, it makes it easy to get down to the peer supporters who really, where the rubber meets the road, do the work of what we're trying to do. So the structure of our group is essentially the program director, the lead coordinator. We have Dr. Cody Todd and Jada Hudson, who are clinical consultants. We reach out to them when frequently we'll get out ahead of our skis and maybe something will come across our phones that we're not really sure what to do, and we don't want to make mistakes. So we do reach out to them. They also assist us with creating our curriculum, creating our trainings, and making sure we're doing it right. And then the coordinators will make sure that our peer supporters are collecting the continuing education that they need, which we provide, so that they can remain current. And then the peer supporters themselves are going out and taking the phone calls, meeting the people, and connecting with the firefighters that reach out to our group. What we found out in creating our team was that it's not difficult to do, but you need a few things to be in place for sure. First, you need a motivated firefighter. You need somebody that connects with this concept and idea and recognizes first the value in reaching out for help, and second, had a personal struggle and can understand exactly what it means to get better. And that person will undoubtedly be motivated to make sure that nobody else struggles in the way that they did. They also need to have a motivated therapist. There has to be a clinical component here where we're being taught correctly the ways to kind of understand and help somebody process, and to create the curriculum to teach, which we are efforting to do right now, that we will make available. Our mission as a charity, since we are a 501c3, is to give. We're not in the business of making money and keeping money. We want to create a program that we can share, that I can hand off, that if I talk to you and you show me that motivated therapist, that motivated fireman, I can say, take this toolbox and go home and walk you through it. And you'll be able to have your curriculum to teach peer supporters what it is they're supposed to do. You'll be able to understand how to navigate what it takes to create your 501c3 charity. You'll be able to understand how to write the bylaws for all of those things. We'll share our policy and procedures with you that we've created over time, that we've amended as we found better ways to do things. And all that stuff is in place. And what we don't want is to give you this idea of, yep, it's okay to struggle, yep, it's okay to ask for help, now go do that, but not show you how. So when you leave, we want you to be able to go home and say, I have the people that I need, now I'm going to do these things, and then we too can have a peer support program.